Now I'm going to talk about healthy competition cooperation dynamics. And I will read the pattern heart, this little description that's on the card and on the page, the pattern page. And then I'll talk about some of the things I've thought and know about what's going on with this pattern. So here's the heart. Cooperative dynamics generate power with that channels collective energies towards shared accomplishment. But cooperative dynamics can also undermine diversity and initiative. Competitive dynamics can promote quality improvement and choice, but they can also promote domination and harm. So understand and wisely weave together the healthy dynamics of both. And this has a great picture of these kids pulling, tug of war against each other. So there's cooperation on each side and competition between the teams. And that's really interesting because there is an evolutionary dynamic which we see a lot in the corporate world, very visible right now, and in politics, the sense of teams cooperating in order to win a competition. So the competition is embedded in a competitive, or the cooperation is embedded in a competitive frame of reference. And I read a really interesting book, what's called Non-Zero, on evolution and looking at society's predicament we are in right now, and that in the history of evolution and the history of the universe and the history of life, more and more you see the pattern of entities combining together into larger entities that can do things the smaller entities couldn't. And that's just been building up since subatomic particles all the way up to people in global economic systems, etc. This thing of complexity being built, functional complexity being built out of smaller parts, which are themselves built out of smaller parts, and smaller parts goes on forever. And that dynamic is largely run by if we cooperate, we can then compete for resources, survival, whatever, in the larger evolutionary world. But he's saying our context is now not a scene where we can win by competing. Our context, as we become a global context, we need to have competition as the context within which, or cooperation as the context within which competition happens rather than the other way around. We need to have global cooperation, building a system within which various forms of competition can safely happen. But there's too much, the downsides of competition can be terminal for our existence on this planet. So we need to, it's not that competition's bad, competition's still great. But consider the Olympics, the sense that we think of Olympics as a great enterprise by humanity. All these teams and individuals are competing intensively with each other, and they've gone through intensive training, and their whole spirit is, to win, to compete, to win. But the whole operation, the whole activity itself is symbolic of multinational global cooperation, maintaining that practice of every 4 years doing another exercise in competition as something that we do together. And good sportsmanship, what's called good sportsmanship, is largely making sure your competitive spirit is contained within a cooperative scene, cooperative assumption, cooperative narrative. And you can see that even in nature. Even there's lots of cooperation in nature. There's major research has been done on the amount of cooperation, synergies, mutual dependencies and stuff in nature. Even the predator-prey, which is sort of the ultimate in sort of competition, I'm going to kill you to eat you. It's like, this is dominate you and get rid of you. But predator-prey relationships actually are cooperative in the larger picture. If the fox eats too many rabbits, the fox starves. And if the rabbits become too quick and hard to catch, the fox starves. The fox starves, and the rabbits eat everything, and then they destroy themselves, sort of like we're doing in the world. We are the dominant predator on the planet. It's mostly microbes that prey on us, but we are the dominant predator, and we are consuming our environment, our niche, which will destroy us. If we're really successful at doing what we're good at, we will wipe ourselves out. So this requires rethinking what's going on, and can we have so where the competition is for those things which will help us all survive. Who can create the most powerful solar cell? That's a good competition. The junk bond king is a financier who ended up spending jail time for his wild finance and junk, his bonds, the things he did with bonds. Michael Milken, when he got out of jail, he had cancer, prostate cancer, and he recreated the field of cancer funding. Right, but was where it existed when he came out of jail was researchers were fighting for grants from the government, and they kept their research really secret so that they would have the best chance of getting and keeping funding and profiting from that. And he created if you have what looks like a good idea, we'll give you enough money to test it for a year, and then bring a report of your research to a conference where everybody is openly sharing their research. And if it's evaluated that what you have is really hot, then you will get more funding. But you have to start out from this collaborative position. So he changed the whole dynamics of funding for this kind of research. And I think of that as a great example of the kind of flipping that we need to do. And people, communities, and families and individuals sharing resources, the whole cooperation. And it's like, who can share best? Who can create tool libraries that actually work? Who can create local currencies that actually work? Who can do the things that we need to do to reduce our consumption and live more meaningful lives? And people to share, there's the open source, people sharing that information. But there's a sort of sense of pride. We came up with the best idea for doing that. So these are some of the healthy competition cooperation dynamics, and trying to avoid the destruction that can come with competition and the flattening of life energy. You're with us or against us, so shut up. If you're going to work on this team, you got to be a team player and don't share your disagreements. Keep them to yourself. That's cooperation, can have that sort of dominating quality to it. So let's value our diversity and translate it into ways that can actually add up to more and more and more. That's the essence of this pattern.